An unlikely encounter. Zilof's consciousness slowly resurfaced as his ship's alarms blared in his ears. Red emergency lights flashed, illuminating the interior of his small spacecraft. As his vision cleared, he took stock of his situation. The control panel was fried, acrid smoke rising from the burned-out circuitry. He had no idea where he was. The last thing Xyloth remembered was his ship being caught in the gravity well of an uncharted planet. He had attempted an emergency landing, but the ship's stabilizers failed. The impact must have knocked him out cold. Gingerly, Xyloth unbuckled himself from the pilot's chair, his green, scaled skin covered in bruises. He tested his limbs. Sore, but nothing seemed broken. A small mercy. He stumbled to the ship's hatch and hit the release with a trembling claw. The door cracked open, letting in a flood of bright sunlight and fresh air. Xyloth squinted as his eyes adjusted. He was in a grassy field, purple-tinged vegetation stretching as far as he could see. The air was breathable, to his relief. Smoke billowed from the rear of his craft, the exterior badly crumpled from the crash. It was unlikely he'd be able to repair it without help. Suddenly, a voice called out, startling him. "Hello, is anyone there? I saw the crash. Do you need help?" Xyloth froze. The language was unfamiliar, but his universal translator implant quickly adapted. The words became clear, and the being speaking them was undoubtedly human. He had crash-landed on a human planet. Fear seized Xyloth's chest. Humans were known across the galaxy for their unpredictable nature. Some called them barbaric warmongering. Others spoke of their altruism and unrivaled ingenuity. He had no idea what to expect. The human came into view, picking her way carefully through the debris field. She was female, with pale skin and long, dark hair tied back. She wore simple, sturdy clothing in earthy tones. Concern was etched on her face. "Stay back," Xyloth warned, his translator automatically outputting the words in her language. He raised a clawed hand, hoping to appear threatening enough to keep her at bay. The woman stopped, her eyebrows raising in surprise. "You're not human," she said slowly. "You're hurt. Please let me help you." Xyloth hesitated. The earnest look in her dark eyes seemed genuine, but he had no reason to trust this strange human. For all he knew, she could be planning to turn him over to her authorities. Or worse. But as he took a faltering step, his vision swam and his knees buckled. The woman rushed forward, catching him before he fell. Up close, he caught a scent that was foreign but not unpleasant, something vaguely floral mixed with a tang of exertion. "Easy now," she murmured, lowering him to the ground. "My name is Jenna. I have a shelter not far from here. Let me take you there and tend to your wounds." Xyloth wanted to resist, but his battered body betrayed him. The human Jenna seemed to be his only chance at survival. He would have to take a leap of faith and hope he hadn't fallen into the hands of an enemy. As his consciousness faded again, he reflected wryly that he should be careful what he wished for. He had always longed for adventure and first contact. He just never expected it quite like this. Adapting to human life, Xyloth awoke in a dimly lit room, tucked into a soft bed that seemed to conform perfectly to his aching body. For a moment he thought he must be dreaming. The last thing he remembered was collapsing into the arms of a strange human woman. He sat up slowly, marveling at the fact that his wounds had been cleaned and dressed with obvious care. The room was simple but cozy, with warm wooden floors and walls lined with overflowing bookshelves. Sunlight filtered in through gauzy curtains, casting a gentle glow. The door creaked open and Jenna appeared, carrying a tray laden with steaming food and drink. Her face brightened when she saw Xyloth sitting up. "You're awake," she exclaimed, hurrying to set the tray down on a side table. "How are you feeling? I did my best with your injuries, but I'm afraid my knowledge of alien physiology is quite limited." Xyloth flexed his limbs experimentally. While still sore, the pain had diminished to a manageable level. More than that, he felt clean, rested, and ravenously hungry. "I am much improved," he said carefully. I suppose I owe you my gratitude, and perhaps my life. Jenna waved a hand dismissively, but her cheeks flushed with pleasure. It was the right thing to do. I couldn't just leave you there. She gestured to the tray. I brought you some food and drink. I tried to choose things that seemed the most universally palatable. I hope it's to your liking. Xyloth reached for the tray, selecting a bowl of fragrant stew and a hunk of crusty bread. He sniffed it experimentally. It smelled divine, and his stomach rumbled. Throwing caution to the wind, he tore off a piece of bread and dumped it in the stew, bringing it to his mouth. Flavor exploded on his tongue, savory, rich, and utterly foreign, but delicious all the same. He found himself devouring the meal with gusto, manners forgotten. Jenna watched him with a delighted grin. In between bites, Xyloth peppered Jenna with questions. He learned that she lived alone in this isolated cabin, preferring a simple life close to nature. She was an avid reader and a keen observer of the life around her, as evidenced by the detailed sketches of plants and animals that adorned the walls. Jenna was equally curious about Xyloth and his species, the Kresneks. She listened with rapt attention as he described his homeworld, with its towering crystalline cities and vast subterranean lakes. He found himself opening up to her, sharing more than he had intended. Something about her manner invited trust. As the days passed and Xyloth regained his strength, Jenny introduced him to more aspects of human life. She taught him to cook simple meals, marveling at his dexterity with a knife despite his claws. They took long walks in the surrounding woods, Jenna pointing out her favorite spots and naming every bird by its song. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire and trade stories. Xyloth was surprised to learn that humans place such value on storytelling and the arts. Jenna's eyes sparkled as she recounted myths and legends passed down through generations. Slowly but surely, Xyloth found himself becoming acclimated to this strange new life. More than that, he began to feel a deep fondness for Jenna. Her easy acceptance and generosity were unlike anything he had encountered before. He knew their idyllic existence couldn't last forever. He would need to find a way to contact his people and return home. But for now, he let himself enjoy this unexpected connection, marveling at the twists of fate that had brought them together. Little did he know that their bond would soon be tested in ways neither of them could imagine. For the outside world was about to come crashing in, and the fragile trust they had built would be put to the ultimate test. A startling discovery. Xyloth and Jenna fell into a comfortable routine over the following weeks. As Xyloth's strength returned, he began to assist Jenna with her daily chores, tending the garden, chopping firewood, and making repairs to the cabin. He found a sense of satisfaction in the simple, honest work. In their downtime, Jenna taught Xyloth to play chess, a strategic game that he took to with relish. They would spend hours hunched over the board, trading quips and challenges. Xyloth couldn't remember the last time he had laughed so freely. But despite the idyllic nature of their days, Xyloth couldn't shake the feeling that Jenna was hiding something. There were times when she would become lost in thought, a worried furrow appearing between her brows. When Xyloth asked, she would brush it off, changing the subject with a forced smile. One evening, as they sat by the fire sipping tea, Jenna finally broached the topic that had been weighing on her mind. "Xyloth," she said hesitantly, "there's something I need to tell you. Something about who I am." Xyloth set down his mug, giving her his full attention. "You can tell me anything, Jenna. I hope you know that by now." Jenna took a deep breath, as if steeling herself. "I haven't been entirely honest with you. I'm not just a simple hermit living in the woods. The truth is, I'm a diplomat, a famous one in certain circles." Xyloth's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "A diplomat? For your government?" Jenna nodded. "I've been involved in some of the highest-level negotiations between Earth and other planets, including your own." A chill ran down Xyloth's spine. "What do you mean?" Jenna sighed, running a hand through her hair. "The Kresnaks and humans have been on the brink of war for years now. There have been skirmishes, escalating tensions. I've been part of the team trying to broker a peace deal, but it's been challenging." Xyloth's mind reeled. He had been so focused on his own survival, he hadn't stopped to consider the larger political implications of his presence on Earth. If he was discovered, it could be the spark that ignited a full-scale war. "Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" he asked, trying to keep the accusation from his voice. "I wanted to," Jenna said softly, "but I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew who I was, what I represented, you wouldn't trust me. That you think I had ulterior motives for helping you." Xyloth was silent for a long moment. He couldn't deny the sting of betrayal he felt. But looking at Jenna's anguished expression, he also couldn't doubt the sincerity of her words. "I do trust you, Jenna," he said at last. "I know you've risked a great deal by helping me, but what do we do now, if I'm discovered?" "I won't let that happen," Jenna said fiercely. "I'll do everything in my power to protect you, Xyloth, even if it means going against my own government." Xyloth was touched by her loyalty, even as he feared for her safety. He reached out and took her hand, marveling at the delicate strength of her fingers twined with his own. "We'll figure this out together," he promised. "Whatever comes, we'll face it side by side." Jenna squeezed his hand, a watery smile on her face. "Together," she echoed. But even as they made their vow, Xyloth couldn't shake the sense of foreboding that settled over him. He had a feeling that their troubles were only just beginning, standing up for what's right. The sound of vehicles approaching the cabin jolted Xyloth from a fitful sleep. He sat up, heart pounding, as Jenna burst into the room. Her face was pale, eyes wide with fear. "They found us," she said tersely. "The authorities. They must have tracked my movements." Xyloth leaped to his feet, mind racing. "What do we do?" "You need to hide," Jenna said, already moving to gather supplies. "I'll try to stall them, buy you some time." But Xyloth shook his head, a calm certainty settling over him. "No, I won't let you face them alone. This is my doing, my responsibility." Jenna opened her mouth to argue, but the look in Xyloth's eyes stopped her. She nodded, a mix of fear and pride on her face. Together, they stepped out onto the porch to face the approaching vehicles. Armed men in tactical gear spilled out, weapons trained on the pair. A man in a crisp suit stepped forward, his expression severe. "Jenna Thompson," he barked. "You are under arrest for harboring an alien fugitive and treason against the United Earth government." Jenna lifted her chin defiantly. "Xyloth is no fugitive. He's a victim of circumstance, and I won't let you treat him like a criminal." The man's eyes narrowed. "You forget your place, Miss Thompson. You took an oath to serve your planet, not consort with the enemy." Xyloth stepped forward, placing himself between Jenna and the armed men. "She has done nothing wrong," he said firmly. "I crashed here by accident. Jenna saved my life. If you want to punish someone, punish me." The man regarded Xyloth with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. "You would give yourself up, knowing what awaits you." Xyloth swallowed hard, but held his ground. "If it means Jenna goes free, yes. I won't let her suffer for my sake." Jenna grabbed his arm, her grip fierce. "No, Xyloth, I won't let you do this. We promised to face this together." Xyloth turned to her, his expression softening. "And we will. But not like this. Not with violence." He turned back to the man in the suit. "I'll come quietly. But I want your word that Jenna will not be harmed." The man considered for a long moment before nodding curtly. "Very well, you have my word." As the armed men surged forward to take Xyloth into custody, Jenna pulled him into a fierce hug. "I'll find a way to get you out," she whispered. "I won't rest until you're safe. I promise." Xyloth returned the embrace, memorizing the feel of her in his arms. "I know you will, but don't put yourself at risk. The universe needs people like you, Jenna. People who stand up for what's right, no matter the cost." As he was led away, Xyloth felt a strange sense of calm. He had made his choice, and he knew it was the right one. Jenna had shown him the best of humanity, their compassion, their bravery, their unshakable loyalty. Now it was his turn to show the best of his own kind, to prove that even in the darkest of times, there was still hope for understanding and peace. He only hoped that the powers that be would see it that way, for both his and Jenna's sake, and for the sake of two worlds on the brink of war. An unbreakable bond. Zoloth sat in a stark, white room, his wrists and ankles shackled. He had been questioned relentlessly by human officials, but he remained resolute in his story. He would not let them twist his words or paint Jenna as a traitor. Days turned into weeks with no word of his fate. Zoloth feared the worst, that his presence had irreparably damaged the fragile peace between their worlds. But still, he clung to the hope that Jenna had instilled in him. Hope that understanding and compassion could prevail. One morning, the door to his cell burst open. Zoloth looked up, expecting to see his usual interrogators. Instead, he was shocked to see Jenna, flanked by a group of unfamiliar aliens. "Zoloth," Jenna cried, rushing forward to embrace him. Zoloth stood, his chains falling away. He looked at Jenna in wonder. What's happening? Who are these people? Jenna beamed at him, tears in her eyes. They're ambassadors, Zoloth, from your world and a dozen others. Your act of self-sacrifice. It didn't go unnoticed. One of the aliens, a tall, willowy creature with iridescent skin, stepped forward. "Zoloth of Kresnak, your bravery and loyalty have moved us all. You were willing to give up your freedom for the sake of peace. Such an act cannot be ignored." Another alien, this one with a crown of horns, spoke up. "Your story has spread across the galaxy. It's become a symbol of the potential for understanding between our kinds. Even now, delegations are meeting to discuss treaties and alliances." Zoloth was stunned. He had never imagined his actions could have such far-reaching consequences. He turned to Jenna, awe in his eyes. "This is because of you," he said softly. "Your belief in me, in the power of connection. You've changed everything, Jenna." Jenna shook her head, smiling through her tears. "We changed it together. You showed me that true courage comes from the heart." She took his hands in hers. "The road ahead won't be easy. There's still so much work to be done. But with you by my side, I feel like anything is possible." Zoloth nodded, his own eyes glistening. Together, he agreed. Always. As they walked out of the cell, hand in hand, Zoloth knew that this was only the beginning. He and Jenna had forged an unbreakable bond, one that would guide them through whatever challenges lay ahead. They had proven that even in a vast, often frightening universe, there was still room for hope, for understanding, for love. And that was the most powerful force of all.